Welcome to the Cruise Lifestyle.
Hi folks, welcome once again to the Cruise Lifestyle. We're into episode 4 now, and today we're actually going to be talking with Tim Faircloth about cruise travel photography, about what he does, what cruise travel photography is, and just some of the experiences he's had photographing ships and destinations around the world. So it's a really interesting talk, so stick around for that one. So first off, we're going to have the news again. We'll have a chat with Bruce Piper very shortly, and we'll just go through some of the stories that have been happening over the last 7 days or so, just as cruise opens up, and just some of the things that have been happening in and around the place. So we'll go straight there and we'll head to Bruce. Thanks for the news. Thanks, Bruce. It's good to catch up with you once again.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
So we're just going to go through some of the things that have sort of been in the press, I guess, over the last 7 days or so. And I'll start off. Joel Katz from Clear had a big full page in the Escape magazine from News Limited, just talking about the frustrations and things that Clear and the industry, I guess, are having with, particularly with the Australian government.
Yeah, look, I think, there has been such a lot of inertia from right across anyone in officialdom in Australia and New Zealand, I've got to say. There's lip service and, I think that Clear and the cruise lines have done a great job in letting officials know how important the industry is, and that it's not just these massive ships that come from overseas, foreign owned, and all the money goes away. There's this huge number of people like you and I who, rely on this for our businesses in Australia. But, despite the acknowledgement by officials, nothing seems to happen. And, twice now, I think there's been pretty much an assumption by the cruise industry that there would be changes to this limit that we have on the current ban on foreign cruise ships, and they've just been blindsided. So now that's in place until the 19th of December, and of course they say, look, it can be relaxed before then, but nothing seems to be happening. So this was a great piece by Joel in Escape, and definitely recognition of what needs to happen. But to me, I think it's a bit of desperation. Clearly what's going on behind the scenes doesn't seem to be working for the cruise lines.
Yeah, it just seems to be so hard to get traction.
Yeah. Look, Minister Tehan has said, when we're at that magical 80% double vaxxed, we'll end up with the ability to start planning for cruising. But of course, cruising, seems to, there's this giant lead time, and there's just not a recognition that, if we could just have, even if they said, when we reach that point, cruise ships will be able to restart, or, whatever protocols, but it doesn't seem that they even want to engage at all until we're actually at that point. And of course, then it'll be months and months before we can actually get ships down here.
Well, on that note, Carnival extended their pause in Australia. They're now out till 16th of January. So
and so that's really interesting, because they had previously, I think they'd said 18th of December, which was going to be the day after the mooted reopening of Australia's international borders, based on that national plan that everyone's agreed to. But I guess it does reflect the reality that, even if it happened right today, that they got the go-ahead, mid-January is the earliest that we could actually be cruising. So yes, a lot of frustration. Let's hope we get past this soon. Yeah.
I mean, there are some bright spots. I mean, Coral Expeditions has announced they're doing some things out of South Australia, and that's this year.
Yeah, and look, that's a real innovation. Unfortunately, it still reflects, the old Fortress Australia, where we're all these individual state fiefdoms. But Coral, to their credit, they have made the most of their ability to cruise, because they're an Australian flagged cruise line. But these itineraries in South Australia are basically, domestic, intrastate itineraries within South Australia, so they don't have to engage with, whatever you want to call them.
They're under leaders, the 150-person limit sort of thing. And
they don't want to have to, they're okay to operate in South Australia. They don't want to be taking people into Victoria or Western Australia. So it's recognition that, this is perhaps the new normal, but at least they can they're allowed to trade, and that's the thing. At least they're not just forced to sit on their hands like the rest of the industry.
Yeah, I mean there are some good news stories around the world of things
heaps.
starting up. I mean, Oceania have the new ship Vista, which comes online in 2023. They've released that for sale, and
that's right. And just about any cruise line that puts out offers at the moment, they're saying they're getting record demand, and particularly for things like 2023, where there is certainly surely some certainty that we'll be allowed to travel by then. And so this Oceania Vista, a beautiful ship, and so lovely to see Oceania, which is a cruise line that traditionally has had these quite stately, but a little bit older ships. This is a new build, and incorporating all those fantastic elements that Oceania cruise lovers love. It's a new build. Look, I've been lucky enough to do a couple of Oceanias, and oh man, to me, the food, the whole culinary experience on board is amazing. And then to combine that with this new ship where they're big cabins, it's all very modern. It's going to be amazing. So I'm not surprised that they're getting record sales. I'm sure it's from past passengers who just can't wait to experience, that have that new ship smell.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like a new car, isn't it?
Exactly.
NCL, they've got another 2 ships that returned to service. So they're up to about 11, I think now.
Yeah, and they've NCL's been really on the front foot in terms of their restart and publicising how they've done their restart. And so I don't know if any of our viewers have seen, they've had this thing called Embark, this series, and it's basically a video series, interviews showing what's been going on behind the scenes as they do this restart. And one of them is Norwegian Jade, which is one of those ships that's sailing in the Med. And it's just, it's showing all the incredible moving pieces that have to go together to get these things restarted, the protocols. It's really good to see, and to see that people can enjoy a cruise holiday. Even this is right at the start of the restart, where there are quite strict requirements. Stuff on board is, they're evolving the health and safety protocols based on the ports that they're going to, etc. Anyway, they've just announced also the last episode of this Embark video series will be coming up. I think it's next week. I highly recommend that people check that out. But if you want a bit of cruise inspiration, and I think it's really great that they're saying this is the last in the series, because that sort of indicates that perhaps we're through the early phases of this restart phase of the industry, at least in places other than Australia and New Zealand.
Yes, that's it. Apart from Australia. Silver Sea. They're selling well. They've got cruises departing Darwin.
And this is an interesting thing, because traditionally your Kimberley cruising's been between Darwin and Broome. With the current attitude of the West Australian government, it is really interesting to me that Silver Sea, I think they're kind of hedging their bets and saying, look, if it remains a really hard border with WA, it doesn't matter, because they're going to be able to cruise out of Darwin, and so they've just got these itineraries, Darwin to Darwin. There are some Darwin to Broome, but basically they're able to give, I guess, customers a little bit more certainty about their flights and where they're going to be able to travel. These are for 2023, and I think a really interesting trend, and I guess reflects the reality that if you have strict border controls, it's all very well, and maybe you get re-elected, but for business in the long term, it's really going to damage your economy. And so, good on the Northern Territory for letting that happen. And the strong demand, I think, does reflect, that people do want a bit of certainty about how they.
Well, I mean, it's all about strong demand. I mean, we talked about Oceania before, but Viking are releasing their 2024 World Cruise. That's 3 years away.
Well, and more than just World Cruise, it's their ocean itineraries for 2024. And so, who'd have thought it? But here we are, we're late 2021. This is the cycle in which, it is earlier than usual, but the fact that they're encouraging people to plan ahead, and even those itineraries include, the continued deployment of Orion in Australian waters, and I think there's also a second ship that's going to be down here. So, you know, maybe we'll look back in 2024 and think, oh, you know, this has been a hiccup, but you know, we're back on board, and you know, really looking forward to a brave cruising future.
Yeah, absolutely. Another one, Penard, doing Antarctica 22-23. They released their itineraries for that.
Yeah, and that's really interesting one, because they usually for those Antarctic cruises, they depart out of Ushuaia in Argentina, but Argentina has been a little bit less willing to engage with cruise lines, in fact with the travel industry, and so they've got a current ban on pretty much any inbound travel. Well,
we spoke about that last week, I think.
Yeah, that's right. And so these Ponant ones, they're, you know, very bullish about being able to restart, and you know, you can book a cruise to Antarctica. You know, let's hope that they operate. You know, because of course that's an experience that no one wants to die without seeing.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's another cruise line that's restarted, so Regent Seven Seas are back in the water, and
yeah, I think they're the last of the Norwegian Cruise Line Holdings brands to restart. But yes, they've done it in style, as they always do with Regent. And so I think the CEO, Jason Montague, was on board that first journey, and you know, really that was a great thing to see him, you know, welcoming people on board, and you know, thanking them for their support, because it's, you know, has taken a lot of faith, you know, to stick with it and, you know, keep those bookings open, and finally that patience has been rewarded.
That's awesome. Royal Caribbean, Wonder of the Seas, which is one of the largest, or if not the largest ship in the world, they're repositioning that from, we're going to do Asia, they're now sort of sending it across to Europe and America.
Yeah. So this was going to be, I think, the first of the Oasis class ships to be positioned in Asia, but clearly there's just too much uncertainty about the port access and, you know, the different conditions in different countries. And so it is technically the biggest one. I think that each time they build one of these Oasis was the biggest, and then they did Allure, Harmony, I think, and now they've got the latest one, Wonder, and I think each time they add a couple of inches. You know, they're all the same design, but you know, they have a little stick that comes out the front so they can say, oh, this one's the biggest. But it is, I've been lucky enough to sail on Oasis a couple of times, and it's quite a technological masterpiece, just incredible. Very big ship, but I should say also not going to be the biggest ship forever, because Dream Cruises has got this massive ship. I think it's called World Dream, still under construction, and when that comes, it's just going to blow all these other ones out of the water.
Yeah, and MSC is not far behind as well. You sort of
correct. Yeah, they've got some incredible new builds on the drawing board.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So Crystal, that's what I was referring to before. I mean, we talked about Viking, but Crystal are releasing their 2024 World Cruise. So it's another one 3 years in advance that we're...
Absolutely. And look, Crystal, you know, it's only a small line. They've only got a couple of ships at the moment. And in fact, they've just announced the sale of their Crystal Esprit. So they're sort of refocusing the business definitely on the ocean.
Well, Esprit was only a recent acquisition for them. Correct. So it's only been about 3 years or something, I think.
And it was like a kind of, you know, super luxury, super yacht, basically. And they've just, they've decided it doesn't fit their business model. And so, but instead, yes, very much concentrating on the World Cruise offering. And so I think they've got Crystal Serenity and Symphony are their two ships. And look, Crystal is a beautiful product, and has a lot of devoted followers. And so I'm sure that they will very quickly sell out that World Cruise. You know, and I've got no idea how much it is, but you know, it's a lot of money. But for people who love that sort of service and love the Crystal products, you know, there's demand out there, which is so great to see.
Yeah, I mean, I've worked with Crystal here in Sydney a few times when they've been here, and just wonderful crew, wonderful. Yeah, it's amazing. Great brand.
Yeah.
Exciting news. USA are opening their international borders officially from November 19 without quarantine. So
this is incredible news. Look, you know, the US, as we've seen throughout the pandemic, they've been pretty pragmatic, but of course, you know, when we talk about our state differences between our states, and America is, you know, just an incredible patchwork of different ideologies and beliefs in how to handle it. But it's so great to just see a bit of leadership from the top. And, you know, look, by the 19th of November, certainly Australia we should be at 80% double vaccinated. Many other parts of the world where they've got sensible policies and they've been able to get the vaccinations out, will be protected. Look, I think that this is President Biden's announced this. It is definitely a freeing up of this fortress mentality. Let's hope that Australia is able to follow suit pretty quickly and get things open.
Well, yeah, I think we're all hoping that.
Yeah.
Last of all, James Packer.
Yeah, that's right.
Ultra luxury yacht that he has. He's flogging that off for 300 million or something.
That's right. And so this is, I don't know what's behind this one. Look, obviously, he's had a rough couple of years with a crown and, all sorts of things going on in his personal life. But look, if you are sick of waiting on the dock, why not just buy your own super yacht and you can go anywhere you like. Yes, I think it's $300 million is the asking price. He had it built new. It's named, I think the initials are the initials of his children. And by all accounts, I'm sure it's superior to any, even though we're so lucky to see so many amazing cruise products. I'd say probably it's a notch above that.
I don't know. You could buy a good second-hand cruise ship probably for, or maybe two or three of them.
Probably a whole fleet, to be honest, in the current environment.
Yeah. I noticed, just off track, I noticed that Ambassador Cruise Lines with the old Pacific Dawn have started up. So that's all on the go.
And fantastic to see. And there's also, I'm not sure whether we mentioned it last week, but there's a cruise line in India also that is starting up just with one ship. But it's great to see that there's a bit of innovation and the ability for, despite the devastation that the industry's experienced through the pandemic, it's an ill wind that blows nobody any good. And some of these guys, are entrepreneurs and willing to roll the dice and actually take advantage of this situation and start a new business that of course will produce prosperity for all sorts of people, as well as give people some great holidays. Yeah,
absolutely. So I think Ambassador's sort of risen a little bit from the ashes of CMV, hasn't it?
Correct. Yeah, that's right. So Christian Bahuni, who was the CEO of CMV, look, CMV, a fantastic product and actually very focused on Australia. They had ships, seasonally they would come down here and they had quite a big operation, a sales operation led by Dean Brazier in Adelaide. But in the grips of the pandemic, they just couldn't raise financing. In fact, Macquarie Bank was the major lender, I think. And yes, but anyway, they've managed to salvage the intellectual property and, they've got a ship and certainly, they've learned some lessons and let's hope that we see them on our shores as well. Yeah,
I'm sure we will. I'm sure they'll get to that stage. So watch this space. But it's sort of, things are moving, seem to be everywhere but Australia. So one day we'll get there. So
maybe next week we'll have some good news to report.
Yeah, we hope so. Anyway, thanks for coming along. It's great to catch up once again and go through some of the things that have been happening. And awesome. We'll see you again next week.
Fantastic. Thanks, Matt.
Thanks,
Cheers.
Bruce.
Bye.
All right, today's conversation, we're going to have a chat with Tim Faircloth. Tim is a veteran, I guess, in some ways of the industry. He's had a lot of experience in creative arts and TV, and he's actually been in the travel industry for quite a while. He run his own travel agency, and he sort of has progressed into what they call cruise travel photography. So he's actually worked for a lot of cruise lines on board, just photographing ships for brochures, going to destinations, all that sort of thing. So we're just going to have a chat with him now and just about some of the experiences and things he's had while doing cruise travel photography. So it's a really interesting story, so stick around and have a watch. So Tim, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Matt.
Just wanting to get to know you, I guess, a little bit more and know about you and where you've come from.
It's a bit of a, I guess, what you could say, a circuitous route to get here. Going back to the mid-'80s, 1985, I left school and I got a job, actually started working in the darkroom, developing film. That was for 3 years, and that was during the day. At night, I went to art school, the School of Visual Art in Sydney, and studied photography, graphic design, and TV production. A few years later, I left that, joined an advertising agency, did similar stuff, mainly graphic design, then went into the sales of advertising, and then by 19, I was driving around town in a nice new company car and being a sales executive, pretending to be a sales executive of an advertising agency because you just know nothing then. Did that for many years, had my own businesses back then, my own marketing, graphic design. Then I was a chef. I went to London, worked there for several years as a chef, came back to Australia, had my own restaurant, cafe here. Then I had 5 years in real estate. All throughout all this stuff was, the creative stuff was always there. Not the real estate, that was purely financial decision. But then the business I have now, my landscaping business, I've had for 20 years, was my father's business. He passed away 20 years ago. I took over the business.
Okay.
But when you do the kind of manual work that I do on a day-to-day basis, it frees up your mind to do other things. And that's by doing that, that's when I created the TV show Larry the Lawnmower, which was for the 7 Network, and that we filmed in 2008. We filmed 195 episodes.
Wow.
That's the biggest thing I've ever done in my life. Went all over the world trying to sell it, over to the Cannes Festival, ended up selling it to Channel 7 here. And big order, had to produce all of that, as well as keep the landscaping side going. So I got used to doing multiple things. And then I've always cruised. So from mid-70s, cruised with my parents. And they were big cruises. We did some big 6-week cruises. So I spent a lot of time at sea.
Welcome back. We're in the middle of our conversation with Tim Faircloth. Today we're actually talking about cruise travel photography. So we'll just continue with Tim and just hear what his experience has been.
As you know, Matt, it gets in your blood. You can't, cruising just gets in your blood. So a bit of a passion, big passion there. And then, again, mind freed up doing the landscaping stuff. I just thought that I had an idea for a travel agency network, which I started up and simultaneously started shooting stuff for that brand. And when I was out there using my skills as a photographer, shooting ships, I would send them off to various publications like Cruise Passenger Magazine, Cruise Critic, who I ended up having a big relationship with. And just by giving them the photos, where it wasn't selling, wasn't charging, then started to get a bit of a name. Then they started asking for shots, so then I could start charging for the time. And here I am. That was 2014. Here we are now, 6 years later, and obviously not now, but living the dream to the cruise travel photography. So that's a bit of the background.
So how did I guess the travel photography was like a passion, but was it something that you aimed to become a cruise travel photographer, or was it just like a hobby thing that you're taking some photos and thought, oh, this is fun? But
no, I think it comes down to, like anything in life, where you when you get a certain age and you realize where you feel like you can add a bit of value. So I had all these photography skills and film and television skills, So I thought I would just combine that passion, and by doing the stuff for free, doing it because out of love, getting up at 4 o'clock in the morning and, you know, looking to see when the ship's coming in, going and shooting them, giving them to publications, you know, you get a bit of a buzz. You get that when you see your photo. I had one on the cover of Cruise Passenger magazine, and, you know, that's a little, I guess you could say, a little pat on the head, you know, you feel nice about it, you know.
Yeah.
And then, so no, it wasn't a goal, like I'm going to set out to be a travel photographer. It just you fell into it. And then when the cruise lines start asking, you start sending you on assignments. And I don't know how many assignments I've done now, but I'm 65 cruises in. You just realize that that's where I am my most happiest. And
it's your sweet spot.
It's my sweet spot. And it's combining a lifetime of skills and careers into the one thing that I truly love. So everything else, the landscaping business is my staple. That's where I make my living. Yeah. The cruise travel photography can be lucrative, but it's not particularly in the last 18 months. It hasn't been. Prior to that, it can be when you're assignment after assignment. But it's probably the hardest I ever work is when I'm on board a ship.
So when you're on board a ship, say you've got an assignment, work versus pleasure, is there sort of any demarcation there, or is it just something that you're on the go pretty much all the time?
Yeah, it's
because I know you get into things, you're pretty dedicated and you're pretty focused.
Yeah.
On that thing.
When it comes to each assignment is different, but I know I shoot from sunrise to sunset. Now, if you're on Alaska assignment, that's from 3 a.m. until midnight.
Yes, I've done the midnight sun there.
Yeah. It's a lot of work. So yeah, I generally can take my family. When I'm on board, I'm half passenger, half crew. So I'm what they call a contractor. Yep. I can go access all areas. I can go to the crew bar. I can go wherever I want. I don't, though. I don't go to the crew bar. I don't do those things. I like that. I like to leave those guys to themselves. But I do get to take my family. We have a nice cabin always. And that, to me, brings the biggest joy. I know one of your questions, I looked through them before coming up, is about what my favourite part of it is. But it is a lot of work. I do not stop. I will shoot from, say, sunrise to sunset. And then, of course, the images have to be downloaded and edited. And that's my...
Do the cruise lines generally, when you do those sort of things, do they have time frames on, you're on board, we need the photos by tonight sort of thing? Or is it just something you've got a bit more leeway with?
That's a good question, Matt, because that's something I really hit upon when I'm in the initial brief with the cruise line executives. Some assignments, they may be, okay, like I did a Viking one, I say recently, it seems recently, it wasn't. One of my most recent ones was a Viking assignment, and it was the World Cruise, and they wanted the sector when it was coming from, where did they get on? Cairns, I think. Cairns down to Sydney. And they wanted, the whole purpose of me being on there wasn't to capture images for the brochures and websites like some cruise lines want. For Viking, it was images for daily social media to, I guess, bring awareness and a bit of a hype around the ship coming to Sydney.
Yep. So
we wanted, leaving Cairns, and they wanted very specific in every port, all these things, and of where the ship was. And that had to be delivered on the day, which is kind of hard because you've got to be out there getting the content, then you've got to come back and edit it in Lightroom. So
I can imagine your culling process. Like, I mean, how many photos would you take in a day, do you think?
Thousands.
And then you've got to cull it down to maybe half a dozen good ones. And
Yep. Yeah, or in that case, on that Viking one, they wanted one image a day. And I would take thousands. But, it's not just for them too. I build up my own library and I use a lot of those shots. In fact, some of my favourite shots were taken on that assignment. And then they wanted a shot of the ship arriving in Sydney, which is a bit hard to do when you're on board.
Yeah.
So I got off in Brisbane and then flew down to Sydney to watch the ship come in and could get that external shot from the Harbour Bridge. And, that was the main hero shot. So it depends. And other times I'll go on board and the cruise lines will say, and this is the ones that I really like because they will realise that It does take a lot of work, and it's important for me to be out there getting the content, like especially on European, where it's port. Mediterranean cruise. There's, you can go 3 weeks on a cruise and have one sea day. Yep. So I have to be out there the whole time getting content. I did a lot of work for Azamara.
This was my sea day in the Med.
Yeah, that's what the Med looks like most of the time.
Yeah, exactly right.
I do all the stuff for Azamara, and as you know, their brand pillar is the destination. So I'm shooting the destination most of the time, and or the ship in the destination. So I've got to get off and get the ship. So I'm out all day. So they realise that, and we get it clear at the beginning, that the images will be delivered, say, 2 weeks after I return to Australia. So I have that time to edit and get everything uploaded, because even uploading the images, they're big. These are huge files, takes a lot of time. So they're the ones I like, where I can just go out and shoot. If it's stuff that has to be provided to the cruise lines daily, it's really tricky actually. I can't just upload an image from when I'm ashore, because it comes from this camera to my computer, and then it's got to be on the ship's Wi-Fi download.
So at what point, like you sort of come, I guess, a long way through your background into doing cruise travel photography. So at what point was it, I'm not giving photos for free, I'm actually starting to get assignments out of this? Like, when did that actually sort of seem to cross over for you?
What started to happen were cruise lines saying, let's send you and your family on this cruise in return for the images. So no payment, just the cruise.
Yep.
And which is nice, but doesn't pay the mortgage.
Yep.
So I guess I did several of those, maybe for a couple of years actually. So you start off doing them for free, giving them for free, and then cruise lines will give you those assignments. And I do realise there is a value attached with getting on board a cruise, but so it doesn't pay the bills. And often, sometimes they pay for the flights, sometimes they wouldn't. And if they're in Europe, it adds up a bit. So that's how it started. And then I guess when you get a bit more confident in your work, you build up a portfolio of your work. Yep. You can show them beforehand the value they're going to get. And I will deliver, on a, let's say, a 3-week assignment to Europe. The cruise line will get around 1,000 fully edited images for their brochures and whatever. So it's a lot of images that they're getting for that investment. So it was a slow process. It doesn't just happen, I'm going to start charging. And you can, once again, show your worth in anything you're in if you just keep producing.
Well, it's like baby steps, isn't it? I mean, you just take one step at a time. And
I'm not going to go in straight away and say, okay, it's 10 grand to send me over here, because it's not going to happen. You just got to say, look, I've got to. Well, I'll tell you what I do, Matt. I have a landscaping business, so I'm straight up front. The cruise line's given us this cruise. They want the images. I work out what, if I'm away for 3 weeks, what my income would have been here in my landscaping business, and that's the rate.
Yeah,
because it's real. It's you got to live. And some of these cruises are like the particularly Mediterranean assignments. We did one where I got to take my family, and it was a luxury brand. And had we paid to go on that, it was 3 cruises, like back to back to back. Had we paid to go on that, it would have been $50,000.
Yeah.
So I realised that here I am you get these moments when you are in the Med, and you've got your family on board. And I see my daughter, she's 16 now. The last assignment I did with her, she was 14 or nearly 15, I can't remember. But you see the experiences that they're getting to see, and my wife just loving shopping away around Europe. So that there is definite value.
So that's why you need the income, though, isn't it?
And I say to my daughter, this is a $50,000 holiday. Yeah. How many kids do you think in the world get that kind of holiday? Yeah. Her answer was about 10%. I was like, you're kidding.
10% or 10% maybe?
Yeah.
Yeah. So what are some of the memorable assignments and experiences?
One with, I've done one assignment with Azamara where they wanted, we got the shots of the ship in Milford Sound. And then I did one with Dream Cruises where we did replicate that shot. So getting a shot in Milford Sound is not easy. So generally speaking, passengers don't get off the ship. It's just they come into the Sound and they've got maybe 45 minutes before the ship has to turn around and head back out, because often there's another ship coming in.
Yep.
The one with Azamara, I couldn't fly a drone in Milford Sound. There's a small airport there, which is actually the busiest airport in New Zealand in terms of plane movements, aircraft movements, not passenger movements, but aircraft. So, and the airport's right there, so it's very, very hard to get drone approval. So I had to get off the ship via a small boat, and which took me away from the ship so I could shoot it, and then it took me to shore, and I had to go overland to meet the ship back in Dunedin.
Oh, okay, wow.
I didn't get back on. I got the shots. When I did it with Dream, that was an incredible experience. I was on board with the lovely Brigida, who heads up Dream here in Australia.
Yep.
And through a lot of coordination, just so much work went into getting this shot with the captain, with Milford Sound pilot, we did get permission to fly the drone, so we had to get permission from Milford Sound Air Traffic Control. And I can't take off set the drone off from the ship. That causes all sorts of problems with radar interference, and it's also a danger to passengers. So generally what I do is I'll get on board a tender. So I had a briefing to be ready to board this tender. My family get to come with me, and we head out, just the safety officer, myself, and my family on this tender. And the captain told me I had 22 minutes to get the shots before he had to get me back on board and turn around, because we had Queen Elizabeth coming in behind us. So here I am. It's a very surreal experience, Matt. Like, I'm standing on this tender at 6:30 in the morning on the roof of the tender, getting my camera shots of the ship, and then flying the drone, and then also trying to land the drone back on the roof of the tender or catch it. And if you know drones, if something goes wrong, the drone will come back to where you took off from, but the tender moves.
Yeah.
So you can't rely on that. You land in the water, so you got to manually fly this thing. And anyway, it's a lot of work. We got all the shots and the footage, and then back on the ship. And I remember the captain saying to me, he had the walkie-talkie to the safety officer saying, "Can you ask the photographer if he would like me to move the ship to the left or the right?" And it's one of those moments where you think, my God, look at where I am. And the captain's asking me if he wants to move the ship to the left or the right to get the right shot. And I was like, no, this is great. I think we'll just move the tender. I think one of that cruise I mentioned, that long cruise we did around the Med, that was with Azamara, and it was incredible for many reasons. But I've got to say, my family coming along was pretty cool. And we did 17 ports around. It was called, the itinerary was Islands of the Med, so a lot of unusual ports that people don't normally get to go to, like Corsica and Sardinia and Sicily, Malta, Menorca, Majorca, all these little small islands.
Well, it's a beauty about Samara too, because the ships are smaller, so you do get into a lot of those.
Oh, mate, I could talk about Azamara all day. That's who I generally work the most for. They've certainly given me the most assignments. So this particular cruise, the last one we did in the Med, I got a bit of a fascination for Monaco. I just love the joint. I think it's so much stuff goes on there that not many people know about. And whenever I had to get this drone shot, as you may know, drone rules differ from country to country.
Yep.
And I didn't really check up on it. I kind of thought same as France, same as Italy, maybe. So I just I just took off. And then so I was flying over the ship in Monaco there. And then there's cameras everywhere in Monaco. It's got the highest CCTV rate per person by far anywhere in the world. And also police are the highest amount of police per capita of anywhere in the world. So I was flying my drone, and then two police officers came running down, and they're like, no. I was like, oh, okay, not allowed. So I just landed it. And not only is it not allowed, it's actually a criminal offence.
Oh, okay.
I was arrested in Monaco and detained, and a few phone calls to the ship, to the head office of Asmara, and to various ASIO departments to make sure I checked out. I was freed, but
well, obviously you're here.
I got a criminal record now in Monaco, which is.
Oh, there you go. Does that mean are you still allowed back in the country, or are they?
I'm allowed to be, yeah, but I won't be flying my drone there.
Okay.
But that was, Asmara have the White Knight.
Yep.
And, I got back on board. We had the White Knight in Monaco, that is just, I don't know. You can't explain it. Monaco by night is magical enough, but when you're docked, again, small ship, right there in the harbour, we had Celebrity Edge offshore, which is the most amazing ship I've been on, by the way. And docked there with all these mega yachts going past with White Knight happening, and I had to shoot that. So I just made it back in time after being arrested, and then I got back on board and my camera broke. My lens broke.
Oh, no. Okay.
Dropped it. So, because I was bloody nervous, so I had to make do and shoot this White Knight with other lenses. It was just the most memorable night, but one of the most magical places you can be.
Yeah. Wow.
But you know what, mate? It's not. I said how hard I work. Only my wife truly knows.
Yeah.
We're away for weeks at a time, and I don't see them. The very last assignment I did before cruising was suspended was the last cruise out of Sydney. The last fully completed cruise out of Sydney, I was lucky to be on it, was Carnival Splendor. And luckily we got those shots because they're the only shots they've had to use of the ship for the last 18 months of the marketing. So I see all my shots come up and up. I took my daughter. My wife didn't go on that one. She couldn't get out of work. And I had to take a friend for my daughter as well because I knew that I wouldn't see her. So, luckily, my daughter brought a friend along, so she had company because, I am just on the go nonstop. I do not work harder, as I said in the beginning, than when I'm on board any of these assignments. It's just, it's relentless, but fun. I'm not kidding myself. It's
a wonderful experience, but yeah, it is. I can imagine just the work that's involved.
Yeah, and the pressure. When you're getting paid to do a job, you got weather. If I did that assignment with Carnival Splendor, for example, the last time I had the opportunity to get the shots, and it was raining in Mystery Island, well, I got nothing.
Yeah.
So I have this constant pressure to deliver, and sometimes you might have a rainy day, particularly in the tropics, where you'll get those moments of sunshine that come out for 5 minutes, and I'll get some of the shots. And you have the cruise line, so lucky you had a nice day. I'm like, well, no, I spent 10 hours in a golf buggy, in driving rain just to get this 1 or 2 shots with the 5 minutes of sun. There's just lots of stuff, like any TV.
Yeah, you sort of make your own. Well, you got to be in the right spot at the right time, but you got to make the best of.
That's it. What you said then is 100% correct. As a cruise travel photographer, there's plenty of photographers out there, right? There are a dime a dozen. But where my cruising experience massively helps, and that's why my niche is cruise travel photography, is 70% of what you do is putting yourself in the right place at the right time to get that shot. The other 30% is technical skills and whatever, maybe even a bit of serendipity, a bit of luck, especially with the weather. But you've got to be able to put yourself in the right position to know what angles and where you want the ship in relation to the destination.
Well, that comes with experience as well, is actually knowing likely what the right spot and the right time is going to be.
Yeah, and knowing what shipboard life, the stuff that I do, it's not just about external, it's the stuff that happens on board the ship as well. So knowing, I guess, how shipboard life works, talking with the crew, communicating what's going to happen where and when, and then putting yourself in that position to get it.
Okay, that was fascinating. It'd be an ideal job. It'd be a dream job, I reckon. But just some of the experiences he's had. Although probably getting arrested in Monaco is probably not my cup of tea. But just a wonderful sort of life and experience that that Tim's had as he sort of gets into his photography. And hopefully once we sort of get started up again, we'll see some of his images and drone footage and stuff throughout various cruise line brochures and things like that. So very fascinating story. Next week, what are we going to do next week? Next week, we're probably not going to have a conversation. We're actually going to just go through some of the tips and tricks on cruising, some of the things that will make your cruise a little less stressful, a bit more enjoyable, and just some of the hacks and things that we can bring to the table and help you in your cruise planning and also when you're on board the cruise. So stick around for that one. That'll be next week. Thank you for joining us. Been great having you along, and we look forward to seeing you again next time. Thank you.